Hello everyone, and welcome back to Foreign Policy Made Simple. If you don't already know, my name is Grant Garland, and I'm the one who will be breaking down some of the most important issues in foreign policy in a way that you all can understand. Or at least that's what I hope, anyway. In this videocast, I will be breaking down the current situation in Argentina and the frequent changes in leadership between very different parties. Recently, a reformist leader by the name of Mauricio Macri was voted out of power, and the Peronist Party returned to power just a few years after running the country into the ground. The country's continued return to Perón, whose policies, for the most part, have failed to return Argentina's past economic glory, has an appeal to everyday workers, which is understandable based on the rhetoric, but not on the results. Unfortunately, Argentina has ping-ponged from traditional democratic capitalist leaders to Peronist leaders back and forth over decades, leading to constant reversals of policies. Okay, I know. No one should cry for Argentina. Let's go ahead and dive into some history. Argentina's economic history is known as the Argentine Paradox, and this explains the advanced economic development in Argentina during the early 20th century, to then reversal, leading to vast economic decline, and still struggling today. So, what happened, and how did this happen? Well, it really all began in 1946, when a man named Juan Perón became president of Argentina and served as president for 10 years. At the time he came to power, and before, Argentina was a powerhouse across all spectrums. They outgrew Canada and Australia in population, total income, and per capita income, and they were the 10th wealthiest state per capita in 1913. Argentina kept up this economic development and this road of success as Argentina's GDP rose to become even higher than Austria's, Italy's, and Japan's. Argentina was doing so well economically that even the US, the wealthiest country today, had to borrow money from them. But Argentina wasn't only doing well economically speaking. Their people were also happy and thriving. They had a high lifespan, low death rates, and as I discussed in the Venezuela video, the misery index wasn't even in the discussion. This all changed, however, when President Perón set Argentina on a populist path leading to state intervention in the economy in an effort to provide greater economic and social benefits for the working class. Juan Perón formed the Peronist Party and gave this party three ideals to live by, these being social justice, economic independence, and political sovereignty. He also came up with his own ideology called Peronism to unite his supporters that rejected both communism and capitalism. Perón brought benefits to industrial workers in the form of wage increases and fringe benefits. He also nationalized railroads and other utilities and financed public works on a large scale, reshaping Argentina. However, despite these seem good policies and actions, things in Argentina began to get bad economically and socially. The GDP rapidly declined, unemployment rates rose, and the misery index was now looking like it had a seat at the table. The Great Depression revealed Argentina's economic reliance on exports, leading to the adaptation of a misguided economic strategy known as import substitution industrialization that ended up leading to more bad than good. Now, given all this, one has to wonder, how the population ever voted for a Peronist leader again. But they did, again and again, in 1974, 1985, 1990, 2001, and again many more years after that, leading to today. So, how did this happen? An excellent question. In 1950, after 10 years of Peronist rule, the people started to revolt. The people of Argentina wanted a change, a different kind of president, or so they thought. Finally, two men named Pedro Eugenio Aramburu and General Eduardo Lonardi took action and led a successful coup d'etat against the Peron government. Pedro Eugenio Aramburu became president of Argentina and took a strong anti-Peronist stance, starting the new era of anti-Peronist views. The following president of Argentina, a man named Arturo Frondizi, focused on economic development and showed an interest in the flow of foreign investment. He decided to devalue the currency to favor exporters and foreign investors. He also decided to implement bits of capitalism to try and increase innovation. But the people became impatient with the reforms, and they didn't see the results in the time that they wanted to, and looked back to the Peronist Party. The Peronist Party regained control and withdrew support from Frondizi and set up a government in the name of Jose Maria Guaido. This switch back and forth occurred again and again in the 1990s and 2000s, and even quite recently with Nestor Kirchner being in power, followed by his wife Cristina Kirchner, until Macri came back. And then again the people became impatient with his reforms and voted for the Peronist Party again. Okay, so let's review. Peronist Party for 10 years. Democratic Reformers for 6 years. Peronist Party for 4 years. Democratic Reformer for 2 years. Does your neck hurt yet? 'Cause mine does. Now, esteemed listeners, you might say that the US has flip-flopped between Democrats and Republicans for many years now as well. But why, despite these changes, has the US been relatively stable while instability has ruled Argentina? Now, here's where the basis for the problem comes in. The ideals of the Peronist Party, that of social justice, economic independence, political sovereignty, and the rejection of communism and capitalism, are like free Chinese food. It tastes good, but shortly after eating it, you feel hungry again. The Peronist Party never recognized its failures of their approach, and the modern-day Peronist leaders failed to learn from their prior mistakes and remain protectionists and continue to favor major state economic management with little to show for it. Now, the main basis for the Democratic candidates in Argentina is getting rid of corruption and making the economy better through capitalist economic procedures. However, their pro-market opposition doesn't have a great record either, and they still have never been able to win over the Peronist followers. Now, these approaches are much more different than the policies of Democrats and Republicans. Countries are like big boats. Turning them takes time. The Republicans in the US may want to point the boat northeast, and the Democrats northwest. So it can turn a bit under different leaders, but still heading basically north. In Argentina, one party wants to go north and the other south. And as each turns the boat around, the boat ends up going nowhere. So, why can't the Argentina boat go anywhere? Well, the people of Argentina want a better economy over anything. According to the Frederico survey, 58.8% of the country is basing their vote on economic matters. And the reason that they don't care about corruption is because of how bad the economy is. Democratic candidates want to better the economy, but the thing is that it takes time to see progress and economic stability through capitalism, and the Democratic presidents aren't given enough time to pursue them because of the unwillingness of the Argentine people to stick with a reform-minded democratic capitalist leader. The appeal of easy money promised by the Peronist Party is a free Chinese dinner, and it remains high in demand. Now, let's look more closely at what just happened in Argentine politics. In 2003, Nestor Kirchner was elected president, and during his term and that of his wife, who followed, they took over retirement savings, increased inflation, and lost Argentina's self-supply of energy. During their term, the peso lost more than 25% of its value to the dollar, and the economy began to collapse. Finally, the people had had enough, and in 2015, they elected a man named Mauricio Macri. The base of his campaign was ensuring that a large percentage of the GDP would go to the people. He vowed to improve the country's reputation amongst investors, boost economic growth, and repair Argentina's diplomatic relations with other countries. He tried implementing market reforms gradually, removed taxes on some exports, and relaxed some exchange controls. Macri tried to do everything he could to change Argentina for the better. This took time, however, and the drop in oil prices and commodity prices put a damper on the economy. In 2019, he lost the election to a man named Alberto Fernandez, who had as his vice president former Peronist president Christine Kirchner. And now, free Chinese dinners were back on the menu. Alberto Fernandez, like Perón, told the people that he would launch social reforms for the working class, decrease poverty, and more of that of a populist leader. But his government had proven to be corrupt and dishonest. So, will there ever be a stable economy in Argentina? An Argentina with democratic institutions and thriving businesses? An Argentina that the world wants to invest in? History says no. But there is always a fortune cookie to open up and read after a Chinese dinner.